Good morning, guys. I am outside inside the garden. It probably won't be morning when you watch this, but good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I'm outside. It's morning time for me. I'm going to be showing you how I changed these two beds and how I did them. I'm going to be doing another one of my beds. If you've been following me for a while, these beds originally were 3x6 and I just used dogwood picket fence, and they were clearance, so they were like 70% off, so each board cost like 50 cents. And I knew it wouldn't last forever, but I wanted my garden to be as big as possible, and I wanted it to be raised beds and to do no dig and all the things. And the only way I could make that possible was by buying clearance lumber, which I had in my previous garden. So I knew that it would last me a good bit before I had to change the beds, and they have. Some of them are actually still completely fine, especially the 3x6 beds that I still have. Most of them are completely fine. I've showed that in previous videos, and I'm not going to be changing those right away. The reason why I'm gradually changing some of these beds is because I decided last year I wanted my beds to be longer. I didn't really like the 3x6. I wanted them to be longer beds and utilize the space more. And so I ended up having my son put a 3-foot board to connect. My pathways are 3 foot, so that made these beds 15 feet. And I really like them being 15 feet, and I'm going to keep them that way. But with doing that, and we laid down landscape fabric after we built the beds, and so you can kind of see right there at the sides of the beds where the landscape fabric butts up with this board. You can see this is butted up all the way against this board, but then we still have weeds growing up here. We have weeds all going down the side of this. So not only are weeds growing up the sides because we put down the landscape fabric as an afterthought, even though I had the landscape fabric before I started putting down these boards, I was thinking I was going to commit to staying wood chip pathways. But after the first year, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get wood chips as frequently as I needed, or as much as I needed, because I did end up getting like 2 or 3 drops here, but it just wasn't as bulk as I needed for this big of a garden. I decided that I was going to put landscape fabric or this woven weed fabric everywhere in the garden, and it's worked out where it has worked out. Like, I have pathways all down through here, and you see there's no weeds in that pathway, so I know, and I have other places where there's no weeds, so I know it's not the landscape fabric's fault. It is weeds just want to be weeds, and they want to grow if you give them space and opportunity. So I'm going to be changing these beds out because some of the 2 that I changed out, the beds were broken, because not only, like I said, I used the dogwood picket ear fence, but also when we were weeding and stuff like that, I didn't put any like bracing at the side. And so, because I tried to do this as cheap as possible, so when I have my kids out in the garden with me, they step on my beds when they're like weeding, and they use like a shovel, they push against the board, and then it pops out. And so a lot of my bigger beds began popping out the screws, and it's fine. I knew I was going to have to replace it. It wasn't like a long-term solution, and especially now that I knew that I wanted my beds to be longer, I knew I didn't want just like it looking so choppy. And by choppy, I mean like, so we put this 3-foot board, and so really, you know, it just looks weird. And so I knew that wasn't going to be a long-term solution. But the reason why I'm going to be doing this bed next, and I'm going to be showing you how I do it, is because this one has the most weeds around it. This one, the weeds aren't so bad around the bed, and then neither is this one. It has like a few, but these are really the nasty weeds, and I've just been going around and stepping on them so that they don't go to flower and stuff. But I really need to just get in here with gloves on because they're really spiky and get all the weeds out. But in order to do that, these weeds are really thick, and they go underneath the board and sometimes even under the landscape fabric, so I need to remove the boards. I didn't want to do that until I had my boards, so my husband went out this morning, got me 5 more boards. I'm changing these beds. If you haven't been here, they are 3x15 at the moment. I'm changing them to 4x16. The reason why I'm doing that is just really so I don't have to cut extra boards. I would leave them, I'm fine with 15 feet, but I don't want to have to cut the boards, and I'm using 8-foot boards, and there was like no match that I could do to have 15-foot boards. So I'm changing them to 4x16. I think it's really pretty that way. and it's fine by me. The first thing I'm going to do is my husband has to cut one of the boards in half for me. We got 5 8-foot boards because that's how many we need, and we need one cut in half to make the corners 4 feet. These are another reason why I chose these beds, is because they are no work for me. So I just wanted to show you, I ran into an ant pile, and these are fire ants that I thought I got rid of because they were over in this corner, and when I was touching it I thought they were gone, but it goes down to all the way over there, and there I've disturbed them. I've been using this fire ant killer as well as a different ant killer. When I see ants, it's just, I'm still glad that I took this bed out and got all those weeds out. This is the pile of weeds, and it already just looks so much better even without putting the boards around. And I wanted to show you, so the boards were like sinking down into the ground, and so they were like a little hard to get up. You can see where my pathways were. They were wood chips, and then I covered them, but you can see the soil and how great it looks. This top layer right here is the horse manure that I put on, and then you can see it even better on this side. You can even see the cardboard I last put on, and just the layers down here. And these were no dig beds, so I can even see where when I dig down it's making even the ground underneath better. So we used this 8-foot board we had to make sure it was level with that side, because I didn't feel like going to get my ruler. And then, so what I'm doing is just making sure it's going over the landscape fabric so we don't have those weeds growing up at the side. And I'm going to use this brown paper, or you can use cardboard, to go in through to cover that gap before I fill it in. So it's as simple as that. You just stick the boards into the slats. I don't know if I said this, but the board is 2 by 6 by 8, so it's 8 feet long. It's 8 feet long, 2 inches thick, and 5.5, because these bricks are 5.5. So even though it's a 6 inches high, it really is 5.5 inches. And you want to make sure your ground is level. If it's not level, like right here, you do get them raised a little bit, and that's fine for me. Over here was super low, and so we did put a board at the end of each one. Eventually I do want to raise them up to double, and so right now this is fine for me, because obviously this is really expensive. The reason why I got those bricks, because obviously I could have just screwed in these boards and it would have been thick enough and fine enough to last a while, or even cut a slit and then have them in each corner to brace. But I don't like working with the saw, even though we have one, and I needed to be able to do this by myself, even though you did see my husband in here helping me. The other ones I set up, the other 2 I set up completely by myself, and so this is something that a woman or anybody who doesn't even have the skills, if they don't want to saw or screw or mess with anything, that they can do it by themselves. And that's why I went this direction, because it just so happened my husband's here. He's not usually here at this time helping me in the garden, so I needed something easy, and obviously that brings up the cost about $20, because I need 6 of these cinder block things, and each one is about $3.38. With tax it was about $20. And then the boards run between $6 and $7, and I need 5 of those. So obviously if I was doing it without just like using screws, it would come up to about 30 something a bed. Is that correct? Yeah, about $35 a bed. But adding on the cinder blocks into no screw and the convenience of that does bring up the price $20 more. So that's just FYI if you are thinking about doing something like this. But like I said, you can always go back in and make these higher. I've seen people where you can stack another brick on top and then just do the same thing by stacking by just doubling this or tripling this to make them higher. And eventually I might double this or maybe even triple them, but right now for money wise and what I have available, I'm just going to leave them single, and they're definitely going to last a long time. This is pressure treated wood. So now that I have them all in place, you can obviously see that there is a gap, and what I'm going to use is this paper. I did order this paper off of Amazon, but you can use cardboard or and I just don't have enough cardboard right now. I have been saving my cardboard again. I haven't been saving cardboard because I hadn't needed it until I used it all in the fall, but now that I'm doing this, I just went ahead and bought some brown craft paper, and I'm probably gonna put about maybe 2 to 4 layers around before I add around the sides, around the edges, before I add more soil in here. Obviously at this point you could fill this in with whatever soil that you want to. I'm just using this garden soil because they had it on like rollback at my local Walmart, because I'm not planning on planting anything in this spots right now. I was really just doing this for going forward. This already has landscape fabric that is 3 feet wide, and I'm changing this to 4 foot wide. So obviously in order to make this stay, I'm just going to be lining this gap with soil. So as you can see, it already looks so much better. I can't wait to get all of the beds looking like that one. So we would have to change the 2 at the front. This one is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more beds. This is the next bed up here that is broken, so I'll probably change this one next. So the only thing I need to do now is to cover that bed with some straw. I do have a little bit of straw left from when I put straw down on those first 2 beds. It's sitting right here because I'm not going to be planting in the outskirts from the foot that I just added. I'm not going to be planting in that. And so I definitely want to cover that soil so it doesn't dry out or anything like that. But already that makes the garden and the bed look so much better by not having all those weeds crowded all around. I'm really, really happy with how it looks. But it's definitely a big difference with it going from 3 feet wide, because that's how long the landscape fabric is, to 4 feet wide, and going the foot longer from 15 feet to 16 feet.